Alright guys, today I'll be discussing the story about Roger Daltrey and Pete Townshend's troubled childhood. Because this was actually featured in the video that I have watched from YouTube. So apparently today I'll be doing a discussion about the life troubled stories of Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend from The who are the surviving members, the two members ever since Kate and John's deaths. So let's just start the video now. Alright, so Roger Daltrey, or Harry Daltrey, was born on 1st of March 1944 in East Acton in London, England. He was the film producer and the co-founder, and he was the rock singer for the rock giants, The Who. So apparently he was one of 3 children of Harry and Irene Daltrey. Daltrey's father was an insurance clerk who was called up to the fight during the Second World War. That was 1 year ago. That was 1 year before Peter Townsend was born, and that was 1 year before World War II ended. So eventually, during the Second World War, Irene Daltrey, with her son Roger, who was 3 months old, had to evacuate to a farm in Scotland. When Daltrey was just a boy, he attended Victoria Primary School and then Alton County Grammar School. So eventually, I would just say Victoria Primary School, I would just say that Roger was expelled. I'm not really sure, but we'll find out in the video soon. So he was in Alton County Grammar School with Pete Townsend, the guitarist, and John Entwistle, who was the bassist. He showed academic purpose in the English state school system, ranking the top of his class, and his 11 plus examination that led his enrollment to the Alton County Grammar School. What I really said in this video just now, it is similar to the fact when Keith Moon failed his 11 plus exam. I know he failed because you know how his behavior was. He's probably like a special needs kid if I'm not mistaken. So eventually he passed. So Daltrey actually made his guitar out of wood. In 1957, at 13 years old, it was a cherry red Stratocaster replica with a skiffle band that called the Detours, which in needed of a lead singer. So they told him that he had to bring a guitar. In a few weeks, he showed up with it. When his father bought him an Edison guitar in 1959, he became the lead guitarist of the band. Unfortunately, during his 15th birthday, he was expelled from school for tobacco smoking. But in videos like this totally wasn't true. You see, Roger Daltrey was actually expelled for bringing a pistol to school, blinding the person's eye, and ending his school immediately. So Townsend apparently wrote into his biography and said, until he was expelled, Roger Daltrey was actually a good principal at the school. So early on, Daltrey apparently discovered another band. He was performing in the Detours, and it changed in discussing changing their name. Townsend suggested the Hair, and Townsend's roommate Richard Barnes suggested the Who. The next morning, Daltrey made the decision for the band, saying it's the Who in it. So that's how the Who band apparently became born on this day by Roger Daltrey, the main lead singer of the Who. So next up we have Peter Townsend. Peter Dennis Lampert Townsend, or you can just say Bojo Drange, was born on May 19, 1945 in Chiswick, Middlesex, England. Now, as I actually mentioned this, he and John were born in Chiswick in London, England, but John was born in 1944 and Pete was born in 1945. So apparently there was something on a story about here. Townsend was born in Chiswick in West London at the Chiswick Hospital in the Northern Road. He came from a musical family. His father, Cliff Townshend, was a alto saxophonist, and he was in the Royal Air Force with the dance band Squadrons. And his mother, Betty, was a singer, and with the Sydney Torch and Lee Douglas orchestras. So what happened to Townshend when he was very young? When Townshend was young, his parents were divorced, and the separation ended when Cliff and Betty purchased a house together on a Woodgrange Avenue in Class Atton in England. Young Pete was reunited with his parents happily, and then Townshend, who was around 4 years old, was sent to live with his grandmother, who was disturbing, Emma Davis. Unfortunately, Pete wrote into his biography, he told the Rolling Stone that his grandmother was totally a nightmare. But why would his grandmother really said it? Well, it could be a myth, or it could be the grandmother was a child abuser, in my opinion. But it's currently unknown if the grandmother was, because not all grandmothers are just kind of like that. They're just very loving. But Pete definitely didn't like his grandmother because his grandmother was totally nuts. According to the documentary, Pete Townshend had to live with his grandmother, and his grandmother was definitely crazy. Unfortunately, Cliff and Betty were reunited after Peter escaped from his psychologically disturbed grandmother, which was scary at first. In 1956, Cliff and his son Pete went to watch a 1956 film, Rock Around the Clock, with the American Rock and Roll, to see Bill Haley perform in London. This was Townshend's first concert. So eventually he wanted to be a professional musician, but he also wanted to be a journalist. Upon passing the 11+ exam, Townshend was enrolled at the Alton County Grammar School. At the Alton Grammar, he was frequently bullied because of his large nose, and that was affecting him. After that, in 1956, during Christmas, his grandmother Emma purchased his first guitar, and it was an inexpensive Spanish model. His father taught him a lot of chords. Townshend was largely taught and was never learned to read music. Townshend and his school friend, who was the bassist, as I said, John Entwistle, the bassist of The Who. So eventually they formed a live group, the Confederates, featuring Townshend on the banjo and Entwistle on the horns. So this was actually before the infancy of The Who band back in 1964. So eventually, by the time Townshend was 12 years old, his brother Paul was born in 1957. And then when Townshend was 15 years old, he had another brother named Simon, who was born in 1960. And just an update to you guys, both of the Townshend brothers are alive. Don't worry, because Simon Townshend is on the guitar and he's actually performing for The Who. And I do believe he's performing the guitar, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm wrong, then you guys can correct me. So eventually, Townshend dropped off from college in 1964 to focus the music on the first time. So eventually, the Who band apparently was created and founded by both John and Entwistle and the other bandmates. So eventually, that's how the Who band became the most popular British band besides the Rolling Stones and the Beatles in the 1960s. So that's all I really need to say for now about the Who band. As I may know, I'm not that kind of a Who fan myself, even though I've heard of who are the Who band. I know the song Baba O'Reilly from the Peanuts movie, but eventually I didn't know the musicians' names until now. So now I can really remember which is which, because I do believe there was a difference between the hairstyle that Roger Daltrey and Pete Townshend really had when they were both young. So now I know who are they, and now I actually know that Townshend was actually the one with the black hair when he was young, and Daltrey was the one with the golden hair when he was also young. So this was actually the case why people would just do a thing like that. But apparently, what I was gonna say is, yes, it's totally true why people do have that kind of style like this. They probably do have this is because they wanted to do the things they want to do. Like, sometimes it depends. If your hair is white, once you're older, then it's okay. So that's all I really need to say for now. There's nothing I can really say about like what did the Who members, like the surviving members, which is Roger Daltrey and Pete Townshend, did in their life. So just an update before I leave. Don't worry guys, Roger Daltrey and Pete Townshend are still alive from this day because they are performing as a duo for the Who. So eventually I was correct because the Who members, the two remaining Who members are alive ever since the deaths of Keith Moon back in 1978 and John Entwistle back in 2002. So eventually there were more of the bandmates that come, but it was not featured in the Wikipedia since Pino Palado, Simon Townsend, who's Pete's brother, and the rest of them, because I forgot which are the names. So I'm sorry I cannot remember like who are they, like who are the rest of the Who remaining members, as in like a tour, even though they're still performing, even though it's not safe for them to perform due to the pandemic. I would slightly suggest that they are the ones that they're trying to perform. So anyways guys, that's all I really need to say for now, and this is me, Wheeling the Tomboy Gamer, signing off.